We all know that you never want to put all your eggs in one basket. You want to have multiple carriers. But once you have those different tariffs or different rates, how do you understand who is giving you the best price for the right lane for each shipment? This needs to all be centralized into something that's called a TMS, or Transportation Management System. It's almost like a middleware for shippers, so they can bring in all of the tariffs, they can rate shop against different carriers, and then come up with the best rate. So the purpose of the TMS is to bring in all of the different carrier rates so that the client can rate shop and figure out who has the best price for the particular shipment. Now, we're starting to hear that there are TMSs out there that are free. How is that being paid for? There's an awful lot of development work that goes into producing a really good piece of tech that works for clients and works for the carriers. So that money must be coming from somewhere. The purpose of a TMS is to be agnostic. You shouldn't really be linked to one particular carrier. And so if a TMS is free, where is that payment coming from? I think that's where you have to second guess and take a look at those carrier prices as well. Are you necessarily getting the best relationship and the best price if you're working with a TMS that's free because somebody's paying for it?
A TMS, it's a tech tool to give you freedom, but also to run your supply chain as you see fit. And I think for a TMS means you're actually paying for the ability to have that and have that freedom for yourself. When a TMS is free, it's normally a sell point for a customer, depending on the size. They're like, sweet, I can use this for free. And oftentimes you need to ask yourself, nothing's free. So where is that monetization from that tech company, the TMS company happening? If you can find that out, that might be able to get you where you need to go. But the problem is I don't hear anybody saying that. So what that tells me, a free TMS tells me that the rates in that TMS are just a marked up brokerage rate, which is fine. If you know that's the case and that's what's happening, then more power to you. Every 3PL now has their own TMS and it's free because you're paying margin on top of those freight costs to utilize it. Not a big deal. That's a completely fine system. The problem is when you start to look at a TMS and the idea of having the freedom. If I'm a shipper and I have direct tariffs, I also utilize some blankets. I utilize my own truckload. I use some gray glove carriers. Am I going to find a TMS that's free that's going to give me the freedom to use that? Or is it just going to be another rate aggregator that I'm going to have to add to my Google tabs? So when I'm quoting a shipment, I have to go to this tab, to this tab, to this tab. And so that's what I look at is a true TMS that you pay for should give you the freedom to do exactly what you need. It should allow you to bring in your own tariffs, no markup on those. Their third party rates should be allowed in there with the known fact that there's markup on them. Be able to bring in gray glove carriers. You should be able to do things like freight bill audit and all that. And that's what you get in a service that you pay for. And so that's the way I look at it is just know what you're getting into. There's a ton of free TMSs out there and literally most of the time all they are is rate aggregators. So it's completing that one step of taking you from going to 10 different websites to get a quote. One, it's a third party logistics providers TMS that'll give you third party blanket rates. Here's the problem is go from I'm all in with a carrier or multiple carriers or I'm all in with a third party. Then you jump over that line. So let's say you're all the way left over here or right. Then you jump over that line and now you're like, I have a rate aggregator and I see rates from 18 different people. It's awesome. Now you became a Walmart and you need to somehow control or not control, but keep track of all those relationships. So why would I want to see 10, 5 FedEx rates? Is that really helping me? It might find me the lowest dollar price. I can rate shop and get to that lowest dollar. Now I need to keep track of whose rate is that? Was that this third party's rate? Was this direct rate? So you need to know who the contact is. So if there's an issue with the shipment, who you contact, who helps you deal with that. It just seems like the industry goes from I'm all in with one spot or I want an aggregator that allows me to shop like Amazon. When the true benefit of efficiency in a supply chain is in the middle where you're like, I control my own tariffs. Yes, I would like one third party provider that has some blanket rates to offer some gap pricing, some flex pricing when my directs aren't that good. And by the way, it'd be pretty cool to have some gray glove carriers that offer higher service levels than standard LTL. There is zero benefit rate shopping across 15 different people to get that all ultimate best price with that carrier because you know it's just margin. That's all it is. Who's going to go with the lowest margin? And maybe you got the lowest price in that shipment, but now you have to deal with the headache of who do I got to deal with if something goes wrong with the shipment? Who does the customer have to call? Who do I have to call for updated tracking? Which carrier am I? Which it just There's no middle ground right now in the industry. And I think that's where we're at. I think that's where true efficiency happens. You can never get the best price on every lane. If you do, you're going to spend all your time doing that. But you can't go all in with somebody because there's a lot left on the table. In the middle, where most efficiency can happen, and you can be okay with that efficiency. It's not 100%, but you might not ever do better with the efficiency of time and how big your team needs to be and things of that nature. It's like the truckload side. You could quote with 100 different brokers, but did saving that extra buck replace the amount of time it took you to get all that pricing and who you're going to work with? There's a couple assets and a couple brokers, and just be okay with where you're at as long as the relationships and the service and support are there.
So over the last 5 years, for sure, there's been such an amazing increase in technology and platforms and sophistication, even in the logistics world, which tends to be a little slower to adopt. If we think about a transportation management system, the idea behind that is to be able to centralize and make things simple for a shipper. What's happened though is the TMSs that we're seeing in the marketplace right now tend to typically be more freight aggregators. They're bringing in a lot of different carriers, lots of different rates, and it's still creating quite a burden on the shipper to figure out who actually is giving them the best rate. And then if something goes wrong, who do they even contact? How do they make sure that the consignee, their end client, the consumer, gets a really good experience? So we need to back up a little bit as to what exactly is the TMS, Transportation Management System. And so you also need a whole team of logistics experts to support the shipper. And I think that's where a paid model really comes in, because it's not just about aggregating through IT who gives you the cheapest rate. It's making sure that you've got a team of experts who can look at the analytics, who can manage the carrier contracts, who can make sure that the customer gets the best possible experience when things go wrong, because they do go wrong. It's LTL, it's shipping. So I think if you are using a free TMS, just step back a little bit and think about, are you really getting the best of what your company needs? And perhaps what you might want to do is pivot or start to research the TMSs out there that are giving a deeper level of service. You might pay a little bit more on a monthly basis, but overall your operational costs are going to drop, and also your customers are going to be getting a better experience.
Getting access to a whole slew of carriers is definitely a good feeling for a shipper. If you were using a direct carrier and all of a sudden you've been open to a TMS through a third-party logistics provider, and you quote that lane and all of a sudden 15 carriers pop up, that's really exciting for you, because now you have more depth to look at carriers that'll fill that void in that lane. So you can price check, you can look at service support. The problem is that tends to where it ends, right? They just keep giving you that list of carriers that'll service that lane, and you really need a partner on top of that'll say, okay, now that we've seen this, which carriers service those lanes best? How can we create a carrier portfolio, a strategic portfolio that will look at your overall volume, not dilute it by having 20 carriers in there, but also optimize it so that you have more than one or two or three carriers to choose from, and then consistently go to bat for you with the carriers, trying to negotiate better pricing agreements, whether that's just overall price or you're looking at, hey, we're hitting a lot of these types of accessorial variances. Can we lower the price on those? But it's having a partner that stays in it and keeps trying to build on that strategy through the long haul. What you're doing today, even if you don't change anything, may not be what you're going to do next year at this time. Pricing might totally change. You were using two carriers for most of your freight at this point in the year, but pricing changes, things change, and all of a sudden you might find yourself next year using entirely different carriers. And so it's an ever-changing world. Why wouldn't you want a partner that's going to try and help you keep in front of that ever-changing world instead of basically reacting to it every time?
One of the biggest benefits using a transportation management system is having the ability to manage all of your carrier tariffs in one platform, along with keeping your orders organized. Most TMS solutions pull in freight rates from numerous carriers, which allows shippers to quickly view options with a single platform instead of having to spend minutes or even hours searching. But a major red flag is when that company offering up the TMS is saying it's free. I think they all probably know that nothing is free. Those TMS systems are likely monetizing from the carriers being used inside of the TMS. In other words, they're getting some sort of kickback to them for putting that carrier in there. The issue with this, however, is that there's not a true level of customer support, and the rates in there are likely a marked up broker rate because you're paying a margin within the rate to use them. A true TMS that you pay for should give you the freedom and ability to pull in your own rates and your preferred carriers, along with other specialty carriers such as a white glove or truckload, and being able to manage and organizing it, knowing you are paying the rate you were supposed to. At Rocket, our TMS provides a customizable solution that enables our customers to have a blended model, giving them leverage to bring in their own carriers plus use the carriers that Rocket has. Additionally, most TMS fees will be based on the level of support needed, development work with integrations, and the overall management of the systems and contracts. Be honest, we get what we pay for, and you have to decide what direction is best for you and what sort of partnership you are wanting to create. And listen, maybe the TMS provider is the type of company that will go to bat for you as well. So not only are they offering a level of customer support and helping you manage your contracts, but when it comes time for you to renegotiate those contracts, they might be one that's able to step in and offer up an additional solution to gain better traction on a tariff that's more feasible to your work scope these days.
There's zero issue with going with a free TMS at the end of the day. But the way I guess I would look at it is, where do you want to go with your supply chain? And are you going to be able to build with that free tech for the long haul? If the answer is no, then you might want to start looking for somebody that you can build into and they'll grow with you. If you go from $500,000 or $100,000 in freight spend annually, are you able to stick with the same company with that? Because you're putting a lot of data and a lot of energy into building around a tech system. Nobody likes switching ERPs. In fact, that's almost like the death of a entire company. They have to get everyone from a legacy ERP to a new one. You're talking at least a year or more in handling that change. If I'm looking at really wanting to invest in my supply chain and the tech I use and the partners I get in with, I would want to look at, can somebody build with me in the long haul? Because if they can't, maybe the time that I'll waste when it's time to change isn't worth the free TMS upfront.
So as shippers start to build and scale and work with more carriers, they need to get a little bit more organized in their back of house. And this is where a TMS, or a transportation management system, really comes into play. And what's great is there's lots of free TMSs out there that are super for smaller shippers starting to scale. But as their business grows, as they become more sophisticated, as they understand the carrier landscape, they're going to start to want to have a little bit more depth to that TMS. And frankly, a free TMS might not have all of the different possibilities that a shipper needs. For example, they're getting quite large, they want to have a direct tariff. How do you combine a direct tariff into a free TMS that's providing brokerage rates? There's very few companies out there doing that. Good news is, this is actually what Rocket TMS does. And what I like about this is it gives you a truly blended model. And not only that, the TMS fees are scaled dependent on the types of services that a client needs. Every shipper is different. Every customer is different. They have a different level of sophistication and a different level of operational support that they need. So TMS fees should be scaled to match that type of client, whether it's a very basic free TMS and do rate shopping, all the way through to freight audit and complete analytics. I think that's why you do need to take a look at the TMS and make sure that they can grow with you.